This portion of teacher training covers the virtual advanced simulation, which includes 4 different life stages for students to work their way through. This version of the simulation is only available to 10th through 12th grade students completing the project-based learning curriculum and is available as the primary capstone experience for students or as an additional experience to those students completing the on-site simulation. For the virtual simulation, we'll review student enrollment, stages of the simulation, and other helpful tips that you'll need to facilitate the student's virtual simulation, whether at school or if the students are completing it remotely. As a reminder, there are 3 different web-based platforms that are used in the JA Finance Park program, depending on the version of the curriculum and simulation you're utilizing. The JA User Management System, or UMS, is where teachers will enroll students in their course if they're facilitating the self-guided curriculum. If using the traditional or project-based learning curriculum, teachers will use the UMS site solely to enroll their students in the virtual simulation. The JA Connect Learning Platform, or learn.ja.org, is where educators can access the teacher guide, student workbook pages, PowerPoints, other materials that they may need for teaching the curriculum. If students are participating in the self-guided curriculum, they will also access JA Connect. Students using the traditional or project-based learning curriculum will not need to access JA Connect. And the JA Finance Park virtual site is where students log in to play the virtual simulation. As you prepare your students for the virtual simulation, know that students can complete the simulation at school or at home if remote learning is taking place. The simulation typically takes about 45 to 90 minutes, depending on the level of teacher discussion with the students and if the students repeat the simulation more than one time. Students will need access to the internet and their own devices, either tablets or laptops, and you should either share the simulation link and login credentials ahead of time or have a plan to distribute them at the start of the simulation class period. At least 24 hours before your scheduled virtual simulation day, you should enroll your students in the virtual platform. For schools using the traditional or PBL versions of the curriculum, teachers will need to enroll their students. The Educator Setup Guide contains screenshots to walk you through the student enrollment process, and I'll demonstrate that here. To enroll students in the course, visit access.ja.org. Here, you'll use the same username and login that you previously used to access learn.ja.org or the JA Connect learning platform. From here, you'll select your specific course or course section to enroll students. If you have multiple class periods, you'll repeat these steps for each class period. In the top left of the screen, select Enroll. And the easiest way to do this for a large group is to import. You'll use the template here. The spreadsheet will have columns for student first name, student last name, and their email address. If you know the student's email address or they have a school issued one, that would be ideal. But if they don't have one, first name and last name alone are sufficient. If for any reason your school does not have approval to use student names, you can also use generic names like student A, student B, etc., in order to still give the students a generic login. You will choose your file and click Upload. You can see that it's added my sample students. I also had not included an email address in my spreadsheet, and so this automatically created jastudent.a certain number@juniораchievement.org. This is only for username purposes. It does not actually create an email account anywhere and is essentially just their username to log in. After you've had a chance to look at your student list, if you have missed anyone or at any point need to go back and add a student, you can do so individually here, and you'll finish your enrollment. When you close out, you'll be able to see the number of students enrolled in your class. Here's my self-guided class with 3 students. If I want to double check who is enrolled, I can also go back and visit the list here. The 2 that I had just added and the self-guided test student I had already added on a previous occasion.
After you've enrolled your students,
give at least an hour for the student usernames to become active in the JAFP system. During the virtual simulation, students will put their learning into action. They will receive a life persona, complete with career, income, education, student loan debt, credit card debt, savings, and potentially a family. Their goal will be to make their budget work. During the virtual simulation, teachers will guide students through the various steps of the simulation. Teachers are provided a guide with screenshots and discussion questions to engage with the class in a more synchronous manner. If you're conducting the simulation asynchronously, teachers are encouraged to use the questions in the school LMS discussion board. Teachers do have the ability to pause the simulation, though students may work at different paces and therefore be at different points within the simulation when the pause occurs. If students finish the simulation before the rest of the class, they can replay the simulation and will receive a different life scenario to work with. Finally, JA staff will be present for virtual office hours held over Microsoft Teams or Zoom for the first day of the simulation. Teachers can use the shared link to hop on or off a video call during the scheduled time should they need help troubleshooting the simulation or have any issues with student logins. Teachers are encouraged to provide some type of introduction to the students before giving them access to the virtual simulation. Once an introduction or orientation has been made, provide the students with the website to access the simulation. Feel free to post this on your school LMS, send it out via email, or write it on the whiteboard. Once logged in, students will have a pre-simulation setup where they choose an avatar, have some evaluation questions that are attitudinal in nature, and select their interests. The most significant difference between the virtual entry simulation and this virtual advanced simulation is that students are allowed to choose a career among the 16 career clusters, allowing them to envision themselves in a realistic career path and financial scenario after high school. Educators should allot time for this setup to ensure proper pacing of the simulation and encourage students to wait to move on to the next stage until given direction by their instructor. Unlike the virtual entry simulation, which only covers the young adult stage, in the advanced simulation, there are 4 life stages for students to work through. In each life stage, the goal is to open up certain categories. For example, in the teenage years, only 6 expense categories are available because typically students have fewer expenses. As students progress into the young adult life stage, thinking about college and their first years in the workforce, they'll budget accordingly for additional expenses. As they move on to working adult and adult nearing retirement, their salaries or careers may change, as well as their budget, shopping, and saving decisions. Students will be able to envision themselves longer term and make important decisions like getting married, having children, or pets. As students progress throughout the different life stages of the simulation, their careers may change but will remain in the same career cluster they selected at the start of the simulation. They will have the ability to make those life choices, but will have some predetermined numbers that factor into their persona, such as student loan debt or credit card debt, which are based on national averages. In the simulation, the students will encounter Jimmy, the virtual advisor. His instructions are incredibly important, so students should make sure to pause to read these, or read these aloud as a class. Jimmy's instructions can be revisited at any time students need a refresher on steps throughout the simulation. Once students enter the shopping phase, they must know that all sales in JA Finance Park Virtual are final. If they are unsure about a purchase, they should exit out of that category before making a payment, then come back to the category later on when they are ready. This is incredibly important. If students spend frivolously and run out of money while they still have budget categories remaining, they will not be able to finish the simulation. The educator at that point will have to make adjustments in the educator portal in order to force end the student's scenario and permit them to replay from the start with a different scenario. Students should be patient and take their time as they make their shopping selections. Within the simulation, the students can see a calendar that allows them to track their spending, debt, and savings. Every student will have some level of credit card or student loan debt that they will need to make sure to pay each month as part of their budget. Finally, if at any point a student needs to revisit their persona or profile, They can click on their avatar. Individual student reports are available following the simulation. Teachers may find these to be a helpful review tool or use these for a larger project or assessment grade. Teachers are also encouraged to use these as part of the debrief lesson and discussion. Please remember that following the simulation, students should complete their debrief lesson, which looks a little different depending on which version of the curriculum they're using. Teachers are also encouraged to have students revisit the JA Digital Career Book. This allows for a fresh comparison between the career the students selected in the simulation and the additional careers they may actually be considering. Finally, students should also complete the post survey in the SurveyMonkey link found on the teacher checklist. Within 1 week of completing the program, educators should complete the program verification form as well as the teacher survey. At this point, you should be familiar with both the curriculum and simulation components of the JA Finance Park program. Be sure to reach out to the JA Finance Park manager if you have any questions as you get started or need additional support throughout the program.